y'all. I'm Karen Morgan, and this is the Purple Bike Podcast. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the year 2009. In 2009, a few cool things came out. One of them was Farmville. Farmville is a video game that you pretty much become a farmer. You deal with farmland management. You have to plow land. You have to plant crops. You have to harvest the crops. You have to raise livestock. I never joined Farmville because it just seemed like a whole lot of work to raise cartoon animals and corn. In 2009, we also got shake weights. Do you remember those shake weights? It's a dumbbell. It kind of like oscillates. You're supposed to like shake it back and forth. But unfortunately, the motion of shaking the shake weights back and forth kind of looked pornographic, I guess. I never got shake weights. I have weights that don't do anything. They're just heavy and they work fine. We also got something called Silly Bands in 2009. Silly Bands were these little rubber bands. They were like silicone and they were made into shapes like animals and objects and stuff. Now, my kids were just the right age that we had a lot of silly bands around our house getting sucked up into the vacuum cleaner. In 2009, Grindr came out. Grindr, if you don't know, is an online dating app for gay, bi, trans, and queer people. It was one of the first apps for gay men when it launched in March 2009, and it's become the biggest and largest, most popular gay mobile app in the world. And in 2009, we got Rum Chata. Rum Chata is wonderful if you haven't had it. It's a cream liqueur manufactured in, wait for it, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and it's made from rum, dairy cream, vanilla, cinnamon, sugar, and other really wonderful flavors. And bonus, it has 14 or 15% alcohol by volume. Rum Chata is second only to Bailey's Irish Cream in the cream liqueur category. I think people use it a lot to make specialty shots. I understand that you can mix it with Fireball to make a cinnamon toast crunch shot. Yum. There was some really great music in 2009. The Black Eyed Peas were all over the top charts. Boom Boom Pow was the number one song that year. And also, I Got a Feeling was right at the top. We also had songs from Lady Gaga. Beyonce. And two country artists from my home state of Georgia that crossed over to the pop charts, Jason Aldean.
Slow or make it go faster down through the woods and out to the pasture. Long as I'm with you, you really don't.
And the Zac Brown Band.
Well, I was raised up beneath the shade of a Georgia pine, and that's home, you know. Sweet tea, pecan pie, and homemade wine, where the peaches grow. In my house, it's not much to talk about, but it's filled when love is grown in southern ground, and a little bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio up, I like to see sunrise.
Ooh, Ooh, there were a lot of TV shows that I liked in 2009. We'll start with some reality shows. That was the year that Toddlers and Tiaras came out. Yay, all about the world of children's beauty pageants and where we got to meet some beautiful people like Honey Boo Boo. The whole thing was pretty horrifying and actually quite entertaining. We also got Shark Tank in 2009, which is now in its 13th season. Shark Tank is the American franchise version of a Japanese show called Dragon's Den. And it shows people that are entrepreneurs. They come to make a business presentation to these 5 investors or sharks. And then the sharks decide whether or not to invest their money in the company. And there were 3 sitcoms that came out in 2009 that I really liked. The first one was Parks and Recreation, or Parks and Rec. It was created by Greg Daniels, who we've talked about before in this podcast, and Michael Schur. It aired from 2009 all the way to 2015. It ran for 7 seasons. Amy Poehler was wonderful in her role as Leslie Knope, who was like a mid-level bureaucrat in the Parks Department of Pawnee, Indiana. You just get to learn a whole lot about small-town politics. There was a really big ensemble cast, which included my favorite, Nick Offerman as Ron Swanson. Parks and Rec had 14 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, and Amy Poehler won the Golden Globe for her role as Leslie Knope. I also loved Modern Family that started in 2009. I loved the show so much, and I watched it from the very first episode. It's also sort of a mockumentary-style family sitcom. It was created by Christopher Lloyd and Stephen Levitan, and it ran for 11 seasons. Modern Family followed the lives of these 3 different families who were all part of one big extended family. And the characters spoke directly to the camera in interview segments. It was so funny and just so well written. And in 2009, The Middle debuted. I loved this show, and not just because it was about a family with 3 kids, 2 boys, and a girl in the middle just like mine, or because the oldest son is named Axel just like mine. I just loved it because it was about a middle-class family living in Indiana in the middle of the country, right? Facing just day-to-day stuff about home, work, balancing family. It was just a great show and really well written. Patricia Heaton was the mom and Neil Flynn was the dad. I feel like the creators, Eileen Heisler and Deanne Heline, have actually lived in my house. There were some really good movies in 2009. Number 1 at the box office was Avatar. Avatar was science fiction. It was directed, written, produced, and co-edited by James Cameron, who also created Titanic and directed that. Avatar is a little hard to explain, but it's set way in the future, and humans have come to this moon called Pandora, and they're living amongst the native people there they're blue and they have tails, and somehow humans have figured out how to put a brain of a human inside one of these things so that they can work together. I don't know. It's a little far-fetched. You just have to watch it, but it's a really cool movie. James Cameron actually wrote Avatar back in 1994, and they were supposed to film it after he finished Titanic, but he said that the necessary technology was not yet available to achieve his vision of the film, and they finally did it in 2009. The big Oscar winner of 2009 was The Hurt Locker, which won Best Film, Best Director for Catherine Bigelow, also Best Original Screenplay for Mark Bowl. I love that Catherine Bigelow won Best Director for The Hurt Locker because she was actually, or is actually, the ex-wife of James Cameron, who was nominated for Avatar. Other Oscars include Best Actor going to Jeff Bridges in Crazy Heart. Best Actress went to Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side. Best Supporting Actor went to Christopher Waltz for his role in Inglourious Basterds, which was a really great film by Quentin Tarantino. And Best Supporting Actress went to Monique for her role in Precious, and that movie also won Best Adapted Screenplay. The animated movie Up won 2 Oscars for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score. It was nominated for 3 more, which included Best Picture. So Up was only the second animated film in history to receive a Best Picture nomination, and it was the first Pixar film to do so, following Beauty and the Beast from Disney. Up was the 10th film from Pixar. It was released by Disney Pictures. Now, the film Up was about an older gentleman named Carl Fredricksen, who was voiced by Ed Asner, and a young boy named Russell. And Carl ties thousands of balloons to his house, and it floats up, and he sets off to go see the wilds of South America to complete a promise made to his late wife, whose name was Ellie. Up was directed and written by Pete Docter and Bob Peterson, and Bob Peterson also voiced the characters of Doug and Alpha. The music that won the Best Original Score was composed by Michael Giacchino, who had also composed music for The Incredibles and Ratatouille. Up was a very, very sweet and funny movie, and it's also the only movie that has ever made me cry really, really hard in the first 5 minutes of a movie. I apologize again to my children for becoming a sloppy mess, but if you haven't seen Up and you cry a lot, just be prepared. Number 2 at the box office for 2009 was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This was the 6th film in the Harry Potter film series that followed Harry Potter's 6th year at Hogwarts. We also got to see the 2nd film in the Twilight Saga film series based on Stephenie Meyer's books. This one in 2009 was called New Moon. Angels and Demons was the sequel to The Da Vinci Code. It was directed by Ron Howard again and starred Tom Hanks and Ewan McGregor. It was also based on Dan Brown's book. And a couple more series movies. We had Fast and Furious with Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. It was about cars and car chases, and I didn't see it. I'm sure it's great. And then there was Star Trek with Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto. And I know this was a big build-up to the Star Trek re-release, but I'm a Star Wars nerd and I never saw it. Sorry. We had a few rom-comish movies in 2009. There was The Proposal with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. This also had Betty White, who was wonderful. The movie New in Town had Renee Zellweger and Harry Connick Jr. and J.K. Simmons and Nathan Fillion. I liked this movie a whole lot, but I don't think it got a lot of traction at the box office. We had Bride Wars, and that was Kate Hudson and Anne Hathaway. It really highlighted the stress of planning a wedding. Kevin James came out with Paul Blart, Mall Cop in 2009, which was kind of funny, and I know a few people that were in it. And we had Sunshine Cleaning, and that had Amy Adams and Emily Blunt and Alan Arkin and Steve Zahn, and it was actually an interesting little film about people who clean up crime scenes and other things that nobody else really wants to go clean. And we had Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. This was the 2nd installment of the Night at the Museum series with Ben Stiller. Very, very entertaining. And this one included Amy Adams. Okay, now for some kids' movies that were all animated. We had Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, which was the 3rd installment of the Ice Age series. We had Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and that had the voices of Bill Hader and Anna Faris. There was G-Force, with the voices of Nicolas Cage and Sam Rockwell, and it was about guinea pigs. Monsters vs. Aliens was a DreamWorks animation film that had the voices of Reese Witherspoon and Seth Rogen. Fantastic Mr. Fox was a stop-motion animation film by Wes Anderson that had the voices of George Clooney and Meryl Streep and a whole bunch of other people, and it was pretty cool. And then there was the animated movie Aliens in the Attic, which I did not see. I made my husband take the kids to see this one, and I understand that he fell asleep and snored during this movie. Other movies from 2009 were Julie and Julia with Meryl Streep and Amy Adams and Stanley Tucci. Very, very cool movie about Julia Childs. Up in the Air with George Clooney, Vera Farmiga, and Anna Kendrick, who is from right here in Maine. A Single Man was a good film with Colin Firth and Julianne Moore and Matthew Good. And oh my God, I love Matthew Good so much. If I had a celebrity pass, Matthew Good would be mine. And some funny movies from 2009 included Funny People with Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen. We had It's Complicated with Meryl Streep, Steve Martin, and Alec Baldwin. We also had Pirate Radio, which I really liked, and that had Philip Seymour Hoffman, Bill Nye, and Nick Frost. The movie Bruno came out. That was another Sacha Baron Cohen film. In a similar way that they did Borat, they kind of interacted with real people. My friend Vic Henley was in this film and also did some writing for them. And we had the movie The Invention of Lying. I thought this was a very, very cool premise where Ricky Gervais plays a guy who's the first person on Earth who learns how to lie, and it just leads to a lot of very funny situations. One movie that I wish had been funnier was Land of the Lost. I really, really wanted to like it more because I was such a fan of the TV show, and I love Will Ferrell and Danny McBride. But for some reason, it just wasn't as funny as I wanted it to be. But my favorite movie of 2009 was very funny. It's called The Hangover. If you haven't seen it, it's about a wild night in Las Vegas for a bachelor party. It has a bunch of idiots, and it just made me laugh so hard. It has Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms, Zach Galifianakis, and Justin Bartha, and Heather Graham. It's just really, really funny. The funniest part to me of the whole movie, The Hangover, was the very end during the credits when you got to see the photos of what really happened that night. Join me next time when we talk about the year 2010. When Matthew Good starred in Leap Year, we first got to see the Minions in Despicable Me, and I did my first triathlon. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Y'all have a great day. Hey, this is Karen. I hope you're enjoying the Purple Bike podcast. For more information about the Purple Bike, go to thepurplebike.com, and also make sure to check out my website, which is karenmorgan.com, where you can subscribe to my monthly newsletter that has announcements about upcoming comedy shows, some really cool giveaways, and other fun stuff. So go to karenmorgan.com and sign up today.